This is the usual places Modcast. Thanks everyone for joining. This is something we've been talking about doing for quite a long time. I think we all got together on SIO's Twitter retro chat, and I just found myself really desiring to hear more about the Xbox. Whenever they'd get into the Xbox topics and then they move on to other stuff, I'm like, I got a deep desire to hear more about it. So, we started hopping into voice chats afterwards and just kind of, shooting the shit and stuff. And just got me thinking that there's a lot of information that exists in this community that exists in people's minds that it would be great to get it out there. Because one thing, I was just looking at this the other day, the original Xbox subreddit has grown like 3 times its size in the past 3 years or something like that. So point being is that there's a lot of new people coming into the scene, and especially with Endgame coming out, there are people who are pulling their Xboxes out of their closets, tinkering with them. And I feel like there's an influx of new people. There's an influx of new interest in this old console that's now, almost 24 years old, right? 23 years in November, right?
Yep.
So anyways, there's a lot of information that maybe it has existed in some form in some deep thread somewhere. And, obviously we can only talk about so much within an hour. But so my goal in this was to kind of spend about, like an hour together and do a little bit more formal than say some of our voice chats and try to get some of this information out there, and also to inform the public about what's going on in the scene, because there is a lot going on, and I don't think it's ever been this active, at least since the early days when there was a lot going on. So there's a lot of people working on cool projects. There's a lot of shifting things going on, and there's I feel like new people who may not be as in depth on this stuff can be introduced, and kind of also, I'd also like at some point, maybe not tonight, but I'd love to also just talk about some of the history in the scene and how it progressed, how it evolved, the killer apps that made it important, and just try and get more information about sort of behind the scenes, if you will, right? So I got a list of topics that I'd love to cover. I don't know how much we'll be able to get through tonight, but we'll just kind of wing it and see how it goes. So I think first off, we got a couple speakers and a couple guests here. So we got 9 or 10 folks that'll be chiming in here or there. So maybe to start, can we? I know this is going to sound like high school, we're going to go around the room and talk about ourselves, right? But the point being is someone might not know your name, right? So just point being is just say hey, or you can even say how long you've been in the scene if you want to brag. If anyone wants to brag, go for it. Well, I guess I'll start. So I'm Scotch, also known as GoTeamScotch, also known as Jordan. Been in the scenes probably since 06 or so, and that was a little bit after things kind of died down, right? I'm not much of a coder in making apps and stuff, but I'm a tinkerer. I worked professionally as a repair technician for a console repair place for a while, so I know my way around a soldering iron. And I don't know. I feel like I've already been talking for a while, so I don't necessarily want this all to be about me. But who's up next? Just if you guys I don't know, maybe just say hello real quick, just so we can all know who's who. I guess
Should probably call
I'll
people
chime
in.
I'll chime in real quick. I'm Milenko. I've been around since about 2002. I've kind of just been that dude that's just been everywhere, and a lot of people know me. And contrary to popular belief, I am not affiliated with SirBIOS in any fashion.
Lies.
which is an actual distinction he needs to make.
It's Milkino, okay? So I'm Hag, also known as Horny Devil. Been around since pretty much the inception of the scene. I've been involved with numerous teams working on hardware and software side for the Xbox. Interesting fact, myself and Iris were the head mods or head admins of the original Xbox scene website, which was run by Xantium at the time. And we collaborated with Milenko to form this Discord couple years ago, which has, as Scotch said, is taken off. There's over 7,000 members in here, so it's great to see that the scene after 24 years is still kicking.
I'm Rowdy from the original Xbox scene, R0WDY. Not very much different than my real name, as some of you may know. I've been blamed for stuff and celebrated for other stuff. So, been around since the Xbox scene started. The first project I ever worked on was the Xbox Save Manager with a couple other people. Then they wanted to do stuff on retail, and I started doing stuff with, I'll call him JJ. He's basically the person that wrote Quicks. Wasn't even named Quicks when we first started, and we started doing that. And then I knew TJ from doing the first Xbox FTP, and we just felt that what we were doing with Quicks and what TJ was working on was a good fit. And then they invited us to join Team Avalanche, and I guess that was the history on the original Xbox scene. And we can talk about 360 stuff later, but I think the main thing right now is what you guys want to hear is about the original Xbox stuff. And I think now what you guys are doing is the collaboration and stuff that's going on today is bringing the old Xbox scene back to what it was. And it was hard to replicate that, but I think from what I've seen, and Rocky5, I'm a big fan of the stuff that you've done. Even though I've been away from the scene, I stepped away in 2013, and some of these knuckleheads on here drugged me back during COVID when we didn't have anything to do, and told me that Avalanche and Quicks was broke, and so they got me playing around with new stuff that you guys had been working on to make all that stuff work again. So that's it. I'll let somebody else talk.
Right, I'll go next then. Name's John, Rocky5. I've been about since 2003. Xbox was before that, but my pal had the Xbox. I didn't get one until about 2003, 2004. Only reason I got it was because you could soft mod it. That's when Bert and Ernie were kicking a bit. I was a tinkerer. I liked breaking stuff, fixing it. Initially, doing stuff with the living crazies in the Derf, the soft mod and stuff came out. I used to tinker with that and improve that and do stuff with that. Then I was doing skins for UnleashX. Then became part of the Team Black Bolt, because I was making an MC360 skin for UnleashX. You could customise it and stuff through the menu system. Limited, but you could do stuff with it to a certain extent. And then I've just been kind of mooching about ever since. I use the Xbox, like doing stuff as a means of kind of fighting depression, essentially. So when I'm feeling kind of crappy, I'll do Xbox stuff. That's why I'll disappear for a while, because life's going great, and then when life's a wee bit crappy, I'll come back in and do a whole load of stuff, and then I'll leave again. And that's really kind of it. I'm a dad, 4 kids. So, I'm old now. Still do the Xbox stuff.
We're all old now.
Aye.
Yeah.
But,
compared to when we started this stuff 20-some years ago.
It doesn't seem that long though. That's the thing. I can still remember doing all this stuff. I mean, my first Xbox had Scissor Sisters on it. What a random album that was. So it was, that's basically it. I've just been mooching about. The soft mod stuff and XBMC for gamers and stuff like that all came about causing my kids. When they were old enough, I gave them Xboxes, and I wanted a way where they couldn't break them. Because like me, they like to break stuff, touch stuff that they shouldn't. So that's how that came about. And that's really kind of it. I've just been mooching about ever since. Help when I can, do stuff when I can. And that's really it. That's me. Not a coder, even though I do it. Can do it to a certain extent. JavaScript, Python and stuff like that, and C and C++. But I'm not amazing at it, so I just persistent, get the job done. Anyway, I'll let somebody else talk.
Thanks, Rocky. I'll go ahead and introduce myself next. So I'm BeefyDJ. I've been in the scene since about 2010. I started out on the Xbox 360. I took a small hiatus, sort of 2015 to 2019, but I came back and I started playing back around with the original Xbox, which was something that I hadn't touched in about sort of 10 years prior to that. I hadn't really been too deeply involved with anyone in the scene. I was pretty much a nobody, but I dealt with a lot of the mods that everybody grew up with on the 360, from the USB modding and the original JTAG days, and watching Xbox Live Stealth launch and grow to its highest point in history. Coming back, I met the guys in Project Liberation. I got quite heavily involved with the resurgence of the 360 scene. Got talking to people like Haguero, Equinox, and a few others when the original Xbox really started taking off again in terms of the homebrew community. And since then, I've been I've had the pleasure of working with the guys on Team Resurgent and also on various other archival projects. I've always been a tinkerer at heart. Since I was like knee-high, I can remember being really invested in like PCs and all these cool things that technology can do. So I love to try and push that where I can. The scene is the reason why I'm a hobbyist coder. So I dabble in C++, C#, and originally, way back in the day, was building robots with Python. And yeah, you'll find me working on various projects. My name pops up, usually behind the scenes, working on quite a few different Microsoft Revival projects at the moment, and also some game revival projects. But yeah, I won't plug too much. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
All right. Anyone else want to say hi? I don't know if we've heard from Derf or Crunch.
I'll jump in, sure.
Yeah.
Hey, CrunchBite, been in the scene since probably around 06. At this point, I'm known for so many things, and there's so many other things people don't know about. The most notable would be project lead of Xlink Kai these days, but I've got some new stuff, XCAT and all that, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm going to give a shout out to somebody that's in here that's making a few comments. Shout out to Redline for all the stuff that he did during the 360 stuff. And
Yes,
I think
definitely.
if you guys know him, he's Redline 99. So he did stuff with ISO projects, and he worked with C4E, and he did some other stuff that helping out for what is now JTAG, but it wasn't back when we started.
Yeah. On that note, I'd also like to give a shout out to Acid Rain, Professor Johnny, Zor Loser, Emacs, Kiwi Dog, Toast, Diamond, and there's quite a few others as well. Blakey, and 15432. You guys rock, and you all know who you are.
Well, looks like we got Zach in here. I think he just joined.
Zach, we've got Harcroft, Skye. If you guys would like to introduce yourself, or Derf.
Yeah, and you know.
Sure, I guess I can.
Sure, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Derf. I'm, I guess, probably a lot newer than most people in here to the scene. I probably joined around 2016, 2017, when I happened to become a moderator on the original Xbox subreddit, and built up a wiki there, which now is on consolemods.org that I run with Crunch. And we're kind of making that like a hub for end user tutorials, guides, repair, tips, and everything. Not just for original Xbox, for a ton of consoles. If you take a look at the front page, there's, I don't know, 40 consoles or so listed there. But my origins were definitely in the PS3 and original Xbox scenes starting out. So I just wanted to build a place that people can find information, because there's kind of a rebirth of the original Xbox scene, I feel like, around 2016 to 2018. So I kind of rode on that wave and noticed a lot of scene sites kind of dying off. Like Xbox scene was a huge hit at the time before it, was restored. So kind of putting all the information in one place is my goal, and going forward as well, just trying to convince people to put information in that place. Like you said, there's so much information that only exists in people's minds, especially in this room. If you at all have anything that you can contribute to councilmods.org, then like please feel free. Just make an account. It takes 5 minutes, to sign up and edit a page. That's my reason for being here, is just information collector, and it's a free open source site, so it's nobody's making money off of it. So,
and it's unfortunate because there is so much of that history that has been lost. So trying to preserve everything is, I guess, the best way of moving forward.
I did want to chime in, and I wanted to thank Derf, because in all actuality, we wouldn't have this Discord if we weren't on their Discord during COVID.
Correct.
We ended up creating this Discord as an extension because I was talking about things that shouldn't be talked about on certain Discords, and we didn't want to get anyone in trouble. And during COVID, for some reason, I think Rowdy touched on it as well, I've got a weird mind. So like, I remember people's usernames, and we had a channel set up, and I just started just basically going through old Google searches and infos and finding old emails and just saying, hey, are you this person?
God, you dug
Contact
up
us
so
here.
many people.
So many people. And half of them are now like mods, or they're registered in here as like scene legends. And it's just funny because we found, I think there was 1 month where we found like 47 different people and had them join the Discord. It was just ridiculous. And they're like, why the fuck are you emailing me? Like,
There was also that time we were pretty sure we found Xantium, but we probably shouldn't talk about it.
no, I'm going to talk about it because you just reminded me, and it's funny. I found this dude on LinkedIn. He is the only person that follows, or that is followed by the quote unquote official Xbox scene or Scenix YouTube channel that hasn't been updated since like 2005, 2004. He's the only person that channel follows. So I reached out to him, and he's like, I'm like, hey, are you this person? He goes, nope, sorry, winky face. Like, it's like, oh, well, we were trying to find him because like we set this up. These guys recovered a lot of stuff from archive.org and kind of rebuilt the forums and everything. And we were just trying to figure out if he was okay. And then he's like, nope, sorry, can't help you, but I'm sure if your friend's around, he's okay. Winky face. And I was like, all right, dude, this got weird. I think we found Xantium. He just doesn't want shit to do with anything anymore.
And yet he still owns the domains and is squatting them after so many years.
They don't expire until like 2027 now.
Jesus.
Yeah. It's all obscurity to stay out of the scene. I mean, over the years, we've had contact with various people over at Project Liberation, and yeah, some of them have had the same attitude of they're fine, they just don't want to be involved, and they don't want to give up their new aliases and have all the attention thrown at them again. And considering some things that have happened in the scene, it's understandable, but at the same time, life changes sometimes.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're all 20 years older, like I'm still in contact with a lot of the original UIX guys. That's why I work on that project. Like, I still talk to Maddie. I still talk to ODB. I still talk to I'm okay. Are you okay? Still talk to Acid Bath. Like, those guys still exist, but they're not like public facing, ODB occasionally hops in here on this Discord now and then. ILTB or Keelbug pops in every now and then, but everybody's got other things going on.
Still can't find J-Bone.
Can't find J-Bone for shit. Or GQ. Like, those two just disappeared off the face of this planet. Like, there's no finding them whatsoever, and it's crazy. But I just want to, before I like just go back to mute, I just wanted to thank everyone that's been involved in this with getting like the archive things going, restoring data that we lost, because like CrunchBite, you know what I'm talking about. That was no No
That
small
took
feat at all.
getting that forum back took 2 years. It was so brutal because I was parsing.
Yeah.
Okay, I was doing the ultimate sin here. I was parsing HTML with the regex, and
Whoa.
I had to account for all the different themes the website had over the years. In the end, 40 different parsers just to get through all the pages. It was madness. But in the end, I got something like 30% of posts back that had ever been, which is pretty good after all those years.
So
Well, I think we've
Wild
learned
ride.
a lot from the mistakes we made from the original Xbox scene. I mean, we did have stuff backed up. I mean, Iris and you guys that used to run the FTPs and the stuff that we had. The only thing is, not everything was backed up, and we lost a lot of stuff that we've been trying to recover. I know I gave Milenko a whole bunch of problems. Seems like we kind of got it worked out, but I think I gave you over 200 tapes, DLT tapes of data. I've also been giving back, which has been sitting in my storage units for probably 10 years, every hard drive that I had. And I've let a few people start doing some data recovery on those hard drives and trying to find some of the stuff that we've lost or some of the stuff we didn't even know we had, which we've done that too. Because he's like, hey, did you know you had that? And I was like, well, yeah, it probably was somewhere, but I didn't really know. At the time, it was no big deal. It was like, just another damn arcade game, whatever, But then you come to find out that it was never released. So, same thing with utilities. We're still trying to find utilities that we created and didn't even think anything of it, and everybody started using it, but we never had it backed up so we can go back and make the changes that need to be made for what everybody's working on now.
Speaking of hard drives, can we introduce Skye?
Sure.
Skye?
She said, what? I heard hard drive.
Oh, yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was taking a drink. So, yes, hi, my name's Skye. I'm relatively new to the scene. I'm actually a fair bit newer than CrunchBite. I've kind of only been here and around here for about like the last, what was it, like September or October, I believe. I work in data recovery. And I kind of just got into this scene because I had a couple of Xboxes just sitting in my garage. So I decided to take them into work one time, took them apart, remembered that the hard drives have passwords on them, and used like the equipment that we have in order to try and remove it, try and put it back on. I joined the Discord, spoke with Harcroft for a little while, and one thing led to another. And now I am part of the data preservation efforts going on. And I even got a couple of boxes in, and I want to say it was like 5, 6, 7. It's like 12 or so hard drives that got shipped in today that I'm going to be backing up and getting uploaded here shortly. But that's pretty much my story.
You've only been in it for a very short amount of time, and you've already made quite a name for yourself.
Yeah, apparently.
So speaking of preservation, do you want to say hi, Harcroft, real quick? I mean, the man who needs no introduction, but for those out there who haven't heard the name, I mean, it's hard to, but.
Oh, that's an introduction. Thank you. I am Harcroft. I am kind of the memory of the scene, or for the scene, when it comes to DLC and title updates, because I started collecting them close to 20 years ago, at least 18 years ago, and kind of haven't stopped since. A few little breaks here and there, but very much just collecting and distributing Xbox Live content that's been lost to the ages. And Skye is too nice about our qualifications, because not only did she start collecting hard drives for us, which between her and D Tomcat, we've collected something like 250 whatever hard drives for original Xbox, but she also helped us figuring out all the unlock commands, unlocking original Xbox hard drives without the user password or without the EEPROM on your computer. Anyway, that's my intro.
Yeah, which by the way is like something that we would have dreamed about having way back in the day. like having orphaned hard drives, you were just locked out, So that was a really cool advancement to see in the scene. And then that was added to PrometheOS, which was really cool to see too. So for anyone listening, just to give some background, so PrometheOS, which works on multiple mod chips now, it's kind of a new mod chip OS, has a feature in it that uses vendor-specific commands to unlock the drive. It sends, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sends, it opens up a serial connection over the IDE, or it also might use the master-slave pins, right, to communicate with the drive and basically extract the drive's password, right? I'm probably simplifying it and butchering it, but that's the gist of it, right?
More or less. If I were to distill it down, it effectively does what is normally it communicates over TTL serial, but what was accomplished is they were able to get it figured out to where you can effectively communicate that, but through the IDE bus, and it just loads it into the buffer, and then it will read it through vendor-specific commands. So it helps eliminate the need for actually having the serial connection on the hard drive itself. Getting that accomplished outside of that environment is where things get a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it seems a bit like magic.
And just to be clear, it's just not Prometheus. You do have the same functionality as well with if you do own a Stellar. So there is various options that, if you do have a locked hard drive that's not paired to that console, whether you have a Stellar or an Aladdin or Xenium or an executor chip or whatever, there is ways for you to now unlock and preserve that data.
Yeah, and so I just want to shout out to a couple folks who maybe don't have speaking abilities or don't feel like chatting. So Equinox, thank you for joining us. It's good to see you. Evan Blacks, and I was going to say Milenko, but he's kind of hard to get to shut up. So anyways, so I kind of wanted to just touch on a few, and of course we can open this up to if anyone has any projects that they're kind of passionate about, I'd love to kind of get some notoriety and get some attention towards that. I think one of the couple of things I'd like to touch on is, so XCAT, for example, I'd love to kind of go into that for a moment, talking about preservation and archiving all of these decades of history. And Harcroft, thank you, by the way, for spending your hard-earned money back in 2008 or whatever it was to actually buy the DLC and back it up. Appreciate your efforts on that. So anyways, with XCAT, do you maybe want to just kind of explain real quick, CrunchBite, because that was something that came out relatively recently, right?
Yeah, about a month ago.
Yeah.
The idea with XCAT is it's an evolution of Harcroft's efforts. It's probably better for him to explain it, but for many, many years, he's been backing up and archiving original Xbox DLC, title updates, the kind of stuff that was hosted on Xbox Live only, or you could only get on special discs that you go and buy, like the Halo 2 map packs, stuff like that. That was one of the ones you could get on disc. Writing was on the wall years ago that all of this stuff is just going to be lost to time because there's no coherent. At the time, there was nobody working to keep them because nobody thought they were important. Even the companies themselves that made them weren't keeping them. So for many, many years, he's been diligently cataloging and gathering everything together and making it available through various methods. But over time, interest slows, consoles are dying, people stop caring, and it gets more difficult. So he and I had been talking for many years about this same problem. So I came up with the idea, walk that back a bit. Milenko wrote a wonderful tool called Pinecone that would FTP into your Xbox and look at a known list of things to look for, and it would tell you if anything was there. And that works great. And I thought to myself, what if I can make that even easier for the user and make a piece of homebrew you run on your console to do all of that for you? You don't have to do anything except launch an XBE, hit a couple times, and you're in business. So that's where XCAT came from. And it's just as simple as that sounds. You load the XBE on, it unpacks itself in memory, launches, gives you some disclaimers, plays some nice music while you wait, and it sits there and goes through all the appropriate files on your console, dedupes them against what we already have server-side, and sends anything new. And in that, Harcroft's already found a few things that were missing from his list. So good job, everybody, for the like 350 or so consoles that we've seen use the service so far. It's working. So keep up the good
Man,
work.
nice.
Everybody keep running this thing. I'll be putting out a new update probably in a week or so to fix a couple bugs, but
Just
keep going, everybody.
Just don't change the background music, because that is a certified banger. Like, I was thinking about asking for a mute button. Like, is there a mute button? Because I don't even think you need it.
There
Like,
is a mute button. You
Okay.
can toggle it on the main screen. You can hit Y to turn the music on and off.
Okay, because I've just let it run, and just sitting there bobbing my head watching the progress bar go,
Ooh, Jade in the chat's got a good idea. Play any music you can find off the hard drive. That would totally be doable.
Linkin Park and Papa Roach. Yeah, definitely.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's currently doable because I think in the client you completely ignore that folder right now.
I don't process the folder, but I could still access the music and play it.
Okay, so you don't like mount that folder or grab it. You just kind of
Yeah.
go, we're not going to look right here.
Yeah, and that's something some people have asked for, asked about. It's like, what are we actually looking for on the console? The goal is to grab DLC and title updates and things like that. But we're also looking for like lost dashboard skins, lost dashboard versions, lost mod packs. Like there were a billion Halo 2 mods made, and some of them are just gone. Nobody has them anymore. And with this, it's been set up so that on the server side, there's a shared database where it knows every single file it's seen and whether it has a copy of it. And that's been pre-populated with like all of the scene files out there, like the HDD ready packs, which I just wish would get deleted from the internet. They're such trash. Please, anybody listening to this, don't use those. They're garbage. Delete them. Move on with your life. So it won't touch those, but it's going to look at your C drive, your E drive, and the cache drives, and your FNG drive. The cache drives is specifically to get Xbox Live content for the Insignia guys, so that they can rebuild lost content from there. In terms of looking at your C drive, that's going to be old dashboards and skins and stuff like that. And the number of saucy Evox background images that have been uploaded is staggering. If you want like Britney Spears in a bikini, that's where they were. And then looking at your E drive, it's going to grab everything in UData, everything in T data, because that's where some DLC were in UData, which is just silly, which is normally game saves. It's going to go through all of the T data, but it's only going to grab stuff that's new. So I am also slowly building the biggest archive of game saves, which is completely pointless, but hey, it's archival.
There are people who want that though, and we're going to share it with them.
True, yeah, at some point we will figure out how to do that. Right now, XCAT's kind of looking like the end of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark there, with the giant room full of boxes that are barely labeled. That's what the back end looks like. It's just a heap of files to sort through later. Yeah, and then looking through your FNG drive, that's looking for mod packs and things like that. So
are you going to do this for 360 too?
I could be talked into it.
Because I can tell you, title updates for 360 is going to be an issue.
I just want to interject here on the subject of 360 and the sort of missing official content, so to speak, for the OG as well, and say that there's been various projects bubbling on the underground. Some of the biggest ones have been to archive pretty much everything from the marketplace before it goes offline. So on that note, as far as I'm aware at the moment, there's been, for the 360 alone, 98,000 pieces of content have been archived. That includes DLC, indie games, arcade games, full game downloads, trailers, themes, and avatar items. But as far as the OG side of things, a lot of the final doors that were open for a considerable amount of time have finally started closing. The announcement that they made to shut down the marketplace was also a sign that they've actually started working on the network and tying things together in a bit more of a professional scale than what it used to be behind closed doors. We have managed to find about 4.5, possibly 5 gigs worth of OG content sort of DLC title updates and some of the sort of hot patch data for some of the sports games as well. But unfortunately, the only way to grab the decryption key has long been discontinued because it was something that was shut down with Xbox Live back in 2010 when V1 closed its doors. So yeah, the final piece of that puzzle is for somebody to crack what the original encryption key was and maybe see about decrypting that content, because that will definitely fill in some holes for the content that we're looking at. But of course, until then, if you do have an OG Xbox laying around and you've not run XCAT, it's a brilliant solution for now. As far as the storage scales, for 360 alone, we're currently sitting on about 15 terabytes worth of data.
I have numbers for original Xbox from what we've gathered so far.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
encrypted packages. We have 931 packages. That includes title updates, DLC, and roster saves that were, rather, roster DLC. That does not include EA's version of a roster save game that downloads separately. 154 titles, and it's roughly 5.26 gigabytes.
Nice. Yeah, that's tremendous. And it's stuff that all just would have been lost to time. I mean, maybe it exists in some Microsoft archive somewhere. Like, you guys have ever seen their shots of their vault where they just have every piece of software that they've ever made sitting on a shelf and every piece of hardware. Like, I'd love to go wander around that treasure trove, right? But it makes me wonder if do they even still have all this stuff like sitting on? I mean, I imagine they probably do somewhere, right? But like, it doesn't exist anywhere else besides in this collection. So it's almost it feels like a bit of history that it's being archived in a way that people can access. It's not just sitting on someone's computer somewhere, and it's the accessibility. It's really important.
Well, the complexity with 360 comes down to how much of this stuff over the years has been remastered or re-released on newer gens and XYZ, which makes distributing things for archive contents kind of questionable in the legal space. But of course, the things that we can definitely confirm are abandonware at this point per se will more than likely start to come out of the woodwork, especially as we start to see 360's Xbox Live sunset. I mean, already with like the marketplace closing and the only way for anybody to get any content being to visit their content history and like their download history, all I can recommend at this point is do that sooner rather than later, because the only way to do that now is via a 360. There's no way to manage the marketplace, and there hasn't been for a couple of years now from like the PC side, and it makes it one hell of a task to have to sit there and push buttons manually. And we're finding that there's a lot of content that the developers and publishers over the years have started putting takedown requests into Xbox Live to not only discontinue the content, but actually have the content completely removed from Xbox Live. So there's no way to re-download it if you did purchase it. And a lot of that stuff's been removed silently over the years. But on the subject of things that have been delisted on the 360 side, though, there are a few various methods that I won't explain because we don't want them patched, but there are ways to get that content.
Yeah.
And just with XCAT, anyone that does run it, it does sometimes take a little while to complete. So if it does come across like it's frozen or it's slowed down, Harcroft has mentioned it a few times as well. Just a simple reboot and restarting the application just kicks it off again and it just re-uploads the data that's required.
That's something I've been talking to CrunchBite about a lot behind the scenes, trying to figure out what that error is, and fairly sure I can get him to reproduce it, in which case we could probably find the problem.
Oh yeah, I've got an idea. Also, I should point out that what Haguero said there is very important. If you do run it and it gets stuck, when you run it again, it'll resume where it left off on the uploads. And if you've got a file on your console that somebody else also has, either of you can upload it and it'll be happy with it. So the whole thing is deduped globally. If you have a unique file, only you have it, you got to be the one to upload it. But everything else you have, as long as somebody else has it and also runs XCAT, we'll have a copy. So we're good. It uploads the absolute minimum possible. There's no duplicated effort.
It won't just resume a file, it will resume a chunk of a file. So you could have theoretically two people uploading the same file at the same time. Or if someone fails to upload a complete file, their Xbox, their hard drive crashes, whatever, their hard drive blows up. The next person who runs XCAT who happens to have that file, it won't just upload the whole file, it'll upload the remaining chunks of that file.
So I'm assuming, I just want some clarification on it. So I'm assuming like you store the hash of the file, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you match the hash on the back end, and then it from that hash and the different people sending in reports of what's on their drives, it's kind of like peer-to-peer archival.
Kind of. You'll also run into files that are identical and exist in multiple places. We only keep one copy of it in the back end, but there's a listing of every name it's ever been seen by and what console that was on. So in the back end, we've got a tool now where you can go and you can browse the hard drive of a console that ran XCAT. You can see everything that was there. Those files weren't necessarily sent from that console, but because it knows the hashes of all of them, there's a full map.
A ghost list.
Exactly. And from there, that's how Harcroft can spit out DLC that's been found and package it up.
Where can one download XCAT?
That's a great question. It's on Xbins, and some other people have posted it in other places, and they can say where they posted it, because I don't remember.
There is a post on xboxscene.info with it. There is a post on, I believe, DGX.net, and if you go to the Console Mods website, if you just type in consolemods.org/XCAT, it'll bring you right to the actual Xbox XCAT page, and there is a link from there to one of those sources for you to download.
Yep. I just want to say on that front, I've just pulled up the numbers from my folder. 5.3 gigs, 168 games, 994 pieces of content are what we found so far. But it's all encrypted. Yeah, it's all encrypted, but we've been able to cross-reference title IDs and in some cases even content IDs to confirm that there's a lot of this stuff that's already decrypted, but there are a few oddities in there that we know are definitely out there in the wild somewhere but haven't run across yet. So it's extremely important that people run XCAT.
On my part, with the actual copies of the decrypted DLC, I have the offering ID of that DLC. And then if I see the offering ID matches an encrypted package, we know that that's the same piece of content. But if you have another encrypted package that's in like a series of numbers like 100 higher or 1,000 or 10,000 higher, and it's the exact same size, it's a pretty good guess that's the exact same version of that DLC, but with a different offering ID. That's happened for numerous games where probably half of the DLC we're missing right now is just duplicates of stuff that we've already got downloaded, like from original consoles. The numbers aren't looking that great if you just look at the raw numbers, but if you look at the context of the numbers, it makes a lot more sense that we're not really missing a whole lot DLC. I would say half is duplicates, most of the rest is sports rosters, and then a very small amount is unique DLC that we're missing, which the biggest one for me is Shikigami no Shiro 2, which we may know someone who has it, but he hasn't been able to dump his console yet.
Oh, really? Someone from Japan, I assume?
Someone in the US who had a Japanese console and had played it many, many years ago.
Wow, very cool. All right, so
I
wanted to kind of just like there's several kind of projects that I kind of wanted to touch on, but I don't necessarily want to steal the stage because there's a lot of bright minds in this room, folks that have been around, from the early days and stuff. But anyways, yeah, there's been a lot of cool stuff happening in the scene recently, and like you guys have touched on it, I feel like we're sort of in a a renaissance. Like there was a lull period, in kind of the mid 2010s, and things kind of were slowing down and stuff. Even the fact that we have Insignia nowadays is a really cool addition. I feel like that's attracted a whole, a new kind of wave of people just being interested in Xbox at all. And there's never been, it's never been easier to mod your console between all the new chips coming out, PrometheOS kind of revitalizing the old Xenium mod chips. Like Prometheus adding extra features like Snake. Who wouldn't want to play Snake on your mod chip before your console even boots? That's like just add online multiplayer to that, and you got yourself a killer app.
Don't challenge me.
Consider yourself challenged. I'll put a bounty on that. There's a crisp $20 bill with your name on it if you can do that. Yeah,
And to be honest with the whole Xenium thing. Sorry to interrupt, but to be honest, it all ties back to the hard work that Ryzee did to actually produce the OpenXenium for us. Because for those who don't know, the original Xenium did have protection in there that would brick or prevent clones from running. So the fact that Ryzee, was able to modernize it with newer components as well to give another option out there for people, that was a great contribution as well.
Yeah,
definitely. He helped loads, especially with some of the Xemu work he did. It was essential for me to have my brainwave of how to create Prometheus. So thank you, Ryzee.
Yeah, I mean, Ryzee's kind of been a monumental name in several projects, of course, with his HDMI project, which is so OpenXHD that Harcroft is working on is, basically like a fork of Ryzee's project that has been augmented and improved and altered and stuff like that. He sort of picked up the torch and ran with it. And I also want to commend and thank Harcroft for his work on that project, because it's something as someone who chases pixels, I'm very excited about. But yeah, I mean, Ryzee's been working on the HDMI board and firmware, as well as we recently released Hawk, which is a super cool project. I know that's something that a lot of people have been asking about, with the influx of people using Insignia. It's like, where do I get communicators, right? So Hawk is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's an open source recreation of the Xbox Live communicator. So it's a board that you plug into your memory card slot, your expansion slot, right? That allows you to use modern headsets. It has a 3.5mm headphone jack, so you can plug in a modern headset and talk to people over Insignia, the replacement for Xbox Live. And that released like a week or two ago, and it was really tremendous to see that. So hopefully it brings back some of the good parts about the old Xbox Live days. Maybe some of those slurs. I mean, we'll see if those make a resurgence. It's all part of the experience, right?
Is Ryzee around, or or maybe he's just away?
Hey, yeah, I'm actually here. Yeah, so thanks for all the kind words.
I can go on.
No
I can keep giving you compliments if you want. I mean, we can just turn this into a Ryzee conversation.
No.
You can also credit Ryzee with the Xbox Live chat or video camera.
Oh, thank you so much. That's been a treat to experience.
That's so good. That was a fun little side project.
On the original Xbox?
Yep.
Yes, there was a camera that was released only in Japan. There's a few videos on it. The most
I know. I have one in my storage unit.
Okay, well we have a replacement for it, which is a PS2 iToy made by either Namtai or Shikoni, and you can convert either to work on an original Xbox now. It's not that hard. There's a guide on console mods if you check out consolemods.org and go to Xbox and check out the iToy mod guide. And
I just want to say on that note, for people who don't read and speak Japanese, Evan Blacks, who is also in this chat here, so he did a conversion of the Xbox video chat app for Xbox and converted it from Japanese to English. So went in there and replaced all the the bitmaps and all the assets and stuff, which it sounds like that was a big pain in the ass. But yeah, it works. And and Insignia also has support for Xbox video chat. So if you have a video camera or a PS2 iToy that's either been modded, or you can also use a modded XBE, right, Harcroft?
You have to modify the unit to bring down. You have to bring two hardware registers to ground them out, and you either have to change the USB descriptor on the EEPROM on the board, or you much easier. You just mod the device IDs into the executable.
Yeah. So if you have a video camera, you could go on Xbox Live or Insignia rather, and we had a video chat a few weeks ago, and there's a lot of interesting features in that I did not expect. To be able to react like you can in Discord, you can react to someone and throw up like icons over yourself. There's sound effects. There's like 500 megabytes of music that you can play as a host, and your participants hear that music. You can rumble their motors. If you pull the triggers, their motors will rumble, which is kind of weird, but whatever.
Oh my.
Japan. That's all you gotta say. Japan.
Yep.
Well, we got that camera back in the day when it first came out, right? Because I don't know if many people know, but Avalanche does have a voice calling feature built into it. This is when we actually had to pay for long distance phone calls. So we built it into Avalanche, and the original Xbox running Avalanche could host 3 other people on a call, but then you on the other side could actually host another 3 people. So it was like Skype before Skype even was in existence, right? But hell, we did it because we were talking to people in Australia, and we were talking to I was in California at the time. We were talking to somebody in Ohio, and then we were talking to Norway. But if we would have done that on a phone back then, it would have cost us a fortune. And we're just doing it over Xboxes.
Yeah.
What's also fun with that is...
But we got the camera because we wanted
Avalanche,
to implement the
like,
camera in it.
Yeah,
And then... So
Avalanche also has a Kai client in it, so it can control Xlink, and it does handle the voice chat for that. And I, not realizing what it was at the time, ripped that out of Xlink like 5 years ago. I'll put it back in for you, so Avalanche works again.
We did
why the hell does it have speech support? What is this? The UI doesn't use that. Oh, it's Avalanche. Oops.
Yeah, there's a lot of features that were in Avalanche that probably people didn't know about.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, we had downloaded content. You could download content for one of the Rainbow Six games, because at the time that's what everybody was playing on Kai. So we built Kai into it, and then Rainbow Six. And I think somehow that Rainbow Six came about. So all those lost maps are somewhere now.
Do you still have those? Because one thing that is also not really very much known in the scene is that I'm also the dev and maintainer of Nemesis now, which had a whole ton of that content. But the Rainbow Six maps is something I've not been able to find, and something that I hope pops up with XCAT. So if you've got a copy of those, send them over.
You may have some on XCAT
I have
right
not
now.
looked.
There are some Nemesis files on XCAT for sure.
Cool. And hi everyone. I also run Nemesis.
I'll have to break out my original Avalanche box that I actually did all that stuff on, my original Xbox, which I haven't switched out that drive from way back in 2000 something. So whatever it's got on it's probably got that on there for you, Crunch.
Don't forget, Rowdy, I also have one of your Xboxes here, and I can go look at the files like right now.
Yeah, the question is if I played that one, but you could look at it or run it, or just run it on, run XCAT on it and see what it comes up with.
Yep.
Because I used to have 4 or 5 of them running in different rooms, so everybody could play against each other. So who knows what's on it?
Scotch touched on the OpenXHD thing. I've got a bit of history from Ryzee about where he started with it, and if you don't mind, Ryzee, could you tell us a little bit more about your history with your HDMI board? If you don't mind.
Yeah, I can try. It's been a hot minute since I looked at that project, but yeah, basically, I probably started it. It was quite a few years ago. Just as a weekend project, I had a few revisions developed, put it together. Got like some early stages of some images showing, and I think I shared them on Discord way back then, and I was having problems with some of the HD resolutions and things like that, and in parallel, turns out the Mac Megahertz, he sent me a DM. He'd asked me how I was going and what kind of hardware I was using, and I started talking to him about it because I had shared some high definition 720p type content, mostly working. I had a couple of issues because he had having a lot of problems at that time as well. But yeah, it turns out he had been developing a board at the same time. So we exchanged a few ideas here and there. Just by a sheer coincidence, we happened to be using the same, the encoder. Any case, I got to a point where I was pretty happy with it. I managed to play through a few games, from start to end with the board, and then I decided, I've done about 5 or 6 revisions on this thing. There's a few teething problems that I can't really solve. So I figured I'd just upload what I had to GitHub, and it got a bit of reception at the time, but it kind of just sat there stagnant for quite a few years until I guess it was Harcroft picked it up in the first instance. We talk a lot about it in private chats and things like that. We exchange some ideas, and he's obviously taken the hardware under his wing and improved it in a lot of ways. I've actually built one of his boards and got it on one of my Xboxes here, and I just flashed it with my old firmware, and then just fired up straight out of the box. So it's looking pretty promising from my point of view. To be honest, I could probably plug that Xbox in right now and play a few games, and it'll work just fine. And at the time, I recommended using a 480p, like one of those
the Force
hacked up
Force
BIOSes, one of those. And if you use one of those, honestly, 99% compatibility. We just it's that last little bit, but my famous last words, it works for me. So I'm sure there's going to be those problems. But yeah, Harcroft's done a great job bringing that up to 2024, and I think generally the feedback from people who have built it has been pretty positive. Same from me. So hopefully someone can pick up the torch and polish off the firmware. And it'd be awesome to have another product that we can all, get access to and build. So yeah, keep it up, mate. Good luck.
Thank you. That's kind words. Actually, I was kind of curious about, you said with the Force 480p BIOSes, but you also told me recently something about the Xbox actually does 480i in 480p across the pixel bus, but then it does the interlacing on the original encoder. Is that true, or am I confused about that one?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but everything I did at the time when monitoring the pixel bus, basically the GPU spits out a progressive image. I wouldn't say it's 480p compliant, but it is a progressive image nonetheless, even when it's rendering 480i. And then the encoder does the left and right field stuff for the composite output there. So the only time it does true interlaced is in 1080i, which is actually a good thing because the encoder actually detects it properly and it works fine. It's just that kind of weird 480i mode, but the GPU is not outputting 480i, and then the encoder is doing some kind of transformation on it. I think that's just where it's getting confused. So it's probably not a big hurdle. It's just something to work through.
It's something for us in the community to work on and get finished up firmware-wise.
And just a question from the community, just in general. Can you just sort of give a bit of details for the people that might not know the difference between going down a solution like your product or what you worked on compared to an existing product like Kex adapter or Electron Shepherd's one? There is differences, but some people might not know. So if anyone would like to speak about that or just highlight them.
Is that? I think they're just so traditionally, I suppose, up until a few years ago, every single Xbox HDMI adapter was effectively a component to HDMI converter, off-the-shelf kind of converter that would plug into the video port on the back of the Xbox, which works fine for most people. Basically, it takes the analog output from the back of the Xbox and converts it to a HDMI compliant signal. So that opened the door for a lot of people with these modern TVs. Keck, he worked on he made his own design that combated a lot of the problems with these off-the-shelf ones. He improved a lot of the signal to noise ratios, shielding, and he used some good quality products. So I think generally the image output on those was significantly better than anything that was on the market at the time. I know a few people have also made similar things over the years. The difference between, say, my HDMI project was it just taps off the pixel bus as it comes out of the GPU before it gets converted to the analog signal. So you avoid that whole conversion, and naturally you, of course, get pixel
image.
perfect. Yeah, you get like a pretty clear image without any of that analog noise introduced.
So it's a pure digital solution. It's not, you don't suffer from generational loss or noise. It's coming, like you said, off the pixel bus, so it doesn't suffer from some of the other side effects that, especially the cheaper options, like Pound and Hyperkin, for example. They darken the picture, they have a lot of noise, and they might struggle with weird resolutions, whereas this is more of a native sort of solution. And by the way, I also just want to mention for anyone who is not familiar, Ryzee mentioned Keck. That would be a reference to Keckule, or the person behind Chimeric Systems. So he makes the Chimeric HDMI adapter, which I have one myself, and I'd say it's, for most folks, like an external adapter will get 95+% of the way there. But if you really like if you want kind of the best of the best, then you have, going all digital is kind of the solution there. So I look forward to when I can finally build my OXHD. I've got 2 prototype boards kind of sitting on my desk, just on the other pile of projects that are collecting dust. So I hope to give you good feedback on that, Harcroft, once I get around to building that. But it sounds like
The thing also
Ryzee tested it, Six has tested it, and yeah.
The thing also was some of the commercial conversions to HDMI for the Xbox was killing people's Xboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Pound was one of them, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm happy mine survived then. I had one of those.
I have one too, but I went to Keck's and used his. And
yeah,
so,
I almost wish Keck was in on this call. He'd be a good guy to get insight from. He's a sharp fellow.
Yeah, we can bring him on.
Shout out to Keck.
Next show. Yeah.
How hard is it to do the HDMI?
You mean an internal HDMI mod?
Yeah.
So I mean, it is a flex cable, so it will have some challenge to it. I've been working with Sikta specifically, and a handful of other people not in the Xbox community, looking for input on flex cables. Like there's a bunch of N64 HDMI mods, and I've been bugging people about those. Like how could we improve this flex cable for you? So my goal is to make it so you can essentially drop the flex cable into place, and the pins will more or less line up with the pads. And I'm, say, 95% there. It's not going to be perfect because you do need to pull the clock line off of the older encoder that connects in, which is the 1.0 to 1.4 boards. You'll have to kind of hold that side of the flex cable down, but the feedback has been fantastic so far. My newest provision that I have on hand is 0.325 millimeters off on the bottom side, and 0.75 millimeters roughly on the right side. So I've got those adjustments done. And the next circuit boards I'm going to order, I will order the new flex cable and hopefully be able to hand out a few just for people to test, even if people are installing these in dead Xboxes. That gives us feedback on how easy these are to install. So I guess the best way I could describe it is as easy as you can get with a flex cable.
I wish we had chip pads. The wee things you used to press onto the chips.
So I actually looked at zebra strips, and it's not feasible. It would be a really cool idea, but it's very expensive and it's not feasible physically.
Can you just make it wireless, Harcroft? Can you just do that real quick, please?
Yeah, because there's not enough RF noise inside the Xbox already.
Well, it's got that Faraday cage. It's fine. Whatever.
Well, the best part of that is it's open source, so anyone can contribute. Anyone can make changes to both the hardware and obviously the software as well. So if anyone's got any background on firmware design or anything like that, then we're more than happy to hear your feedback and try to make a product that everyone can enjoy.
Solderless version would be good.
just on that, I've been toying with the idea of not removing the AV port and having a no-cut version, because removing the A port could be very troublesome for some people. And if you've got a special edition console, you're not going to want to cut a hole in it. So just throwing some ideas at Harcroft. He's made is in the process of making a little flex PCB that can come out the back of the fan grill. HDMI port.
That's not what I said.
No, it isn't.
Okay, so there's two ideas so far. One is if you want to keep the AVIP port, instead of having an HDMI port on an OXHD, I can literally just drop on a 20 or the existing 24-pin connector we're already using. You would just buy two. And we will buy shielded flex cables. So you could theoretically run shielded flex cable outside the back of your Xbox just over the AVIP port, which is a clunky solution. But something Foundry wanted was the HDMI port inside the fan grill, which is maybe possible, but it's something we're going to have to see if it's possible after the fact. The important thing is putting a flex connector on the finished board where the current HDMI port is.
Exactly that.
I like BeefyDJ's answer. I don't want to cut up my skeleton or my crystal to do it. I won't be cutting up my Mountain Dew one.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to be that guy, but yeah.
Or my second anniversary Japanese one.
That's why I threw the idea
the current mods
to,
are remove your AVIP port. That's what the standard kind of operating thing is you remove the AVIP port. But we're going to try and find ways around that and around cutting. I can't guarantee they'll work, but we're going to try.
Don't worry, I got plenty of Xboxes. I'll take one of my junky ones to do it.
This guy's got a pile of orange Halo boxes.
There has been a ton of feedback and ideas, and some of them were amazing. Some were terrible. Some were just impossible. So I've added as many features as I can, and I'm not currently looking for more feature requests. Sorry to kind of dump that, because I am getting a lot of ideas from people that are physically impossible to do on a circuit board that fits in this space. So as it stands, I am the only person doing physical design, but I've taken input from a lot of people, and I've been more than heavily leaning on Ryzee for suggestions and feedback. And I do appreciate that you've gone out of your way to provide that on a project you're not working on anymore.
And I thank you, Harcroft, for humoring my idea of making it a RRS jack for video out. Like, I got to tell you, the first time I booted up my Xbox and my Stellar didn't communicate, like it didn't turn on, and I had a Xbox that didn't have a video out, and I'll admit it could have been something I did. My Xbox has like a lot of mods, but that was a humbling moment when I turned it on and just nothing happened. You know, at that point I couldn't get video out, you know, because it didn't have the STM chip and blah blah blah. So as a consumer, as a user, I thank you, and I appreciate that you've humored me with that idea, and I'm also excited, just as someone in the community, that this is coming out. I mean, it'd be cool if it was wireless. Gonna throw that idea out there. If you could do that real quick, very cool, thank you. But if we have to solder in a flex connector, you know, so be it, you know.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time we've done something funky to make an Xbox work.
So, Harcroft, is there anything else that you guys actually need to bring it to completion, aside from, you know, design iteration, fitting, and all of that, and maybe some of the nice to have features? But is there actually any like missing components you need somebody to step in for firmware to fix something or anything?
So firmware wise, there's two developers who are very interested in taking their time to kind of improve the existing work that Ryzee has done. Hardware wise, like I say there's two, but I'm sure more people will take a look at it and be like, hey, I can contribute to this. And it's going to be on GitHub, so anybody can make a PR, anybody can make a fork. Hardware wise, it's mostly on me right now. I have to finish off one of the newer boards that I have that no one else does yet. And once I just validate that that's physically working, then I order the next newest board, which is going to be the last development board, but not the last board. And once that is done, I have to basically redesign a good chunk of the board physically, not the schematic, just the board, to make everything fit perfectly or at all inside the Xbox. So kind of it's time-wise right now, it's just on me.
And I'm guessing one of the reasons as well that it's taking a while as well is because you are trying to make it affordable for everyone as well, right? So there's no point of trying to source out parts that are, you know, nearing end of life or might be a bit hard to find. So you have gone out of your way, the flex cable connectors and MCUs and everything else to make sure that it is something that everyone can enjoy.
Okay, so component selection. My goal with components is to make sure you can get it from two sources, one being China or LCSC, and one being either DigiKey, Mouser, or Arrow. Unfortunately, the ADV 7511 isn't available in any North American distributors, but there are 50 or 60 distributors worldwide, and they're fairly inexpensive off AliExpress, LCSC or whatever. Other than that, every component I found an exact match or a near enough match, both from LCSC and DigiKey. But I will try to get an Arrow part list as well. So components, I've decided to make a change for the microcontroller because the one Ryzee chose, which was a perfect selection in 2018, 2019, I believe the STM32F series is meant to have like a 10-year service life. And it was a 2017 part, which means 2027 we're going to be looking for a new part. So I picked up an STM32G series chip that is roughly the same cost, like a few cents less, but offers a lot more features and gives us more room for expandability. The biggest change I did recently was the TVS diodes are extremely difficult to solder. And the TVS diodes are TVS is transient voltage suppression. So if you have a sudden spike of power coming through your HDMI signal lines, you want that to go to ground and not to fry your microcontroller or your TV or whatever display device you're using. So Ryzee basically told me on their prototypes, don't solder those if it's too much trouble. They just buck things up. And essentially, you're not going to see a voltage spike along one of those lines unless you're hot plugging the device. So if you're running a prototype and you don't solder those, don't hot plug your cables. Beyond that, I've recently changed the flex connector because the old one was fine. I had some feedback that it didn't have a deep enough insertion depth from the flex cable, so we want to make it nice, like clunk when you plug it in. It makes it a nice, not a click feel, but you want to have a nice deep insertion for the flex cable so it seats well. And that connector is also hardier and rated for twice as many matings. So most flex connectors are rated for like 10 matings. This one's rated for 20. And you may get 100 out of it, but like the higher the rating, the better. And that cost is also lower. Basically, the goal is to get the cost as low as possible without sacrificing quality. So a lot of the capacitors, for example, that Ryzee originally had, I've changed a handful of them to a cheaper capacitor that has a tighter tolerance because there's a newer part available. All right, I felt like you wanted to ask a question.
No, that's fine. I mean, as Rowdy had mentioned, it's all about pushing the Xbox to its limits, and it's I guess it's not the first time, and it's probably not going to be the last time. But it is definitely great to see these advancements taking place, and as I mentioned earlier, the fact that it's open source and anyone can contribute to it. Because there is very talented people out there. It's just spreading the word and making them aware of these projects.
Yeah. And I feel like we're currently in the pre-OXHD era, and I'm very excited to see what happens once, say like 3, 4, even 5 years from now, like who else is going to come onto the scene, what other Evan Blacks or Skies are going to come onto the scene, who take it and run with it and augment it and stuff and add other features. That's going to be very cool.
Well, and remember, we're modifying hardware that's 20 years old. I mean,
yep.
Some of our Xboxes are 23 years old, 22 years old. I mean,
with
the 1.6s, but the old ones we're talking 23 years old.
Yeah.
Hell, I had 360s that didn't last a year. And we got an original Xbox that can last 20 some years. And we're talking about 2027. We're going to be talking about is 26 years old by then. Hell, the thing you could go and take it and drop it off the roof of a house, and I bet you bring it into your house and it's still boot up.
Yeah, no red ring on that.
Yeah, no towels, no pennies.
Yeah, but we also got to acknowledge that modding of the OG Xbox pretty much essentially happened almost from day one of its life. we had Friendtech that started doing CPU upgrades on their units, and we had other groups out there that had pulled off other stuff that maybe publicly wasn't released at the time. But one of the things that I would like to bring up was the fact that back in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004, 256 megabytes of RAM was a thing on the OG Xbox, and people be like, how was that achieved? But it was done, and the funny thing about that is, come 23 years later, in my position right now, I've got 2 consoles that have 256 megabytes of RAM running on them, and there is talented people working on it to make it an option now, or a solution that the enthusiasts will be able to perform this mod on their Xbox as well. So along with that and the CPU upgrade, you're talking about a mini PC.
Yeah,
essentially.
And for anyone listening, who just to say it, so that's a 4 times increase on the amount of RAM, which it makes me wonder if can that even be pushed beyond that? I mean, it makes me wonder what's possible now.
I mean, go back to like when these guys came to me during COVID and they said, "Hey, we're running 3 terabyte hard drives in this." I was like, "You got to be shitting me." I go, when we wrote the software,
yeah.
A 250 gig hard drive, 300 gig hard drive was big back then, right?
Yeah. Now we're getting 16 terabyte hard drives, and like SurBIOS, added support for dual hard drives, and hopefully the software catches up to that. So that's 32 terabytes in theoretical max capacity. Plus, you can upgrade the CPU to be twice the speed at 1.4 gigahertz, and hopefully in the near future you can quadruple the memory to 256 megabytes. I mean, the Xbox is a crazy platform. And I think that's, we're all tinkerers, so we're all kind of drawn to its repairability for one. I mean, like you were saying, you could drop it off a roof and it'll survive. You can upgrade it like crazy, and that's not even kind of touching on some of the new stuff that's coming out. Like I see Shalix in this chat. So Shalix has been working on OGX. Sorry, I almost said OGX Mini Mod Show, which is a RP 2040 based mod chip, and that came out very recently, and that has got a huge amount of potential to be kind of, I don't mean to oversell it, but that could be like a new kind of X3, basically, right? X3 was a big deal because it had, all these extra features, bank switching, and a user interface and stuff. And like I said, this is a very exciting time. This is a very exciting time for the OG Xbox scene. There's a lot of cool projects going on, and it's honestly hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I agree with Skye. We could drop the Xbox, but the one with the 16 terabyte ain't going to survive.
And just to make it clear, with the RAM, it's just make it clear it's not RAM stacking. So it is a solution that does not involve you stacking RAMs like you do on a 1.6 console. Unfortunately, there's more information will come out, but we also got to respect the developers that are working on the solution at the moment. So I can't, I don't want to leak any photos or anything else, but it is a real solution. It's not just me that has these consoles. There are quite a few other people that also have access to these consoles as well. So it does look like there's going to be some interesting times ahead. Now, people might say, well, what are you going to do with 256 megs of RAM? To be honest with you, at the moment, not much.
Nothing.
The original retail games were capped to only utilize 64 megs of RAM. But, there might be homebrew in the future that can utilize this, Linux, for example, and so forth. So from a retail perspective, you're not going to notice an increase.
Well, and some of the emulators too.
Sorry?
Could take advantage. Some of the emulators could take advantage of it.
Yes, correct. Yeah, anything homebrew-wise definitely can be modified to take advantage of this. But from a retail perspective, if you go and take your Halo 2 disc and insert it in your drive and expect something phenomenal to happen, it's just going to play as it normally always did.
Half-Life mod.
And so that makes me wonder. if you guys saw Grim Doomer's blog post about how in depth he went with trying to squeeze every kilobyte of RAM out of the system to make his 720p mod work, like, it makes me wonder, if he had 256 megabytes to work with, would that smooth it out? Does that become viable at that point? And also, on a related note, XBMC is a powerhouse of media center. By the way, we haven't even talked about XBMC at all yet, but it makes me wonder what we could do with that. I'm sure like Rocky's probably running into some kind of memory limits. I mean, once you start displaying 883 or something, 900 games in their cover art, I mean, I'm sure there's got to be some kind of memory bandwidth or memory limitations you're running into there, but it opens up new possibilities, especially for making Linux usable. Can we now run Windows XP? That was the end game of the whole point. We can now run Windows XP. Thank you very much.
Scotch, you're like the moderator here, but can you tell us about your Jellyfin profile for XBMC?
It's a project it's one of those my weekend projects are simple, just XML file editings, whereas Ryzee's is, I'm making an entire new open source platform that pulls pixel bus data. Geez, it's hard to follow that up, right? But so the Jellyfin it's a profile you can add to your Jellyfin server if you have Jellyfin, and I'm sure it probably works on Emby as well, where you can just make XBMC a target casting client. So as long as you have this profile in there, it'll tell your Jellyfin server what codecs to transcode at and at what bit rates. And it's a work in progress. But if anyone out there listening right now has a Jellyfin server, I desperately need testers, because there's a wide variety of formats that I'm sure there are edge cases that I haven't tested, and there's some that I'm still discovering. So that's on ogxbox.com. There's a thread I have up in there. And by the way, when I'm editing this video later on and going to publish it, I'll also show screenshots and stuff and post links. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm probably going to be showing that right now. But anyway, so if you have a Jellyfin server, you can load this profile on there. It'll cast it, to your Xbox and make it like part of your modern media setup. So you can cast your videos and music, and photos isn't working yet, but hopefully that will be working in the near future. So anyways, I'd love to get more input on that if anyone has a Jellyfin server that you're using. Oh, and by the way, it also I'm planning on supporting 128 megabyte and 1.4 gigahertz boards specifically, so that people who have those can benefit from the extra horsepower.
Just going back a little bit on the mod, what's the Raspberry Pi mod chip called again? Modshare?
It's written MODXO. It's pronounced Mod Show.
Cool. Going back on Mod Show and the the possibility of LCD support and chasing the X3 mod chip, and I suppose by extension the X3C control panel, X3CP thing. Now that we have 3D printers available, it seems like the resurgence, which is why Team Exurgent exists, has definitely brought a whole lot of life back into the console. And with Insignia running, and Ryzee's new Hawk communicator, which is the first time an open source or variation of this now very highly sought after communicator is out, it definitely seems like things are running ahead at full steam.
Absolutely.
I just excuse me. I just want to put out there while I'm here that there is undergoing work on an alternative service to Insignia, and one of the things, there's a few key points for this alternative service. The first one being redistributable content, so things like title updates and DLC are going to be a priority as far as availability on this alternative service. But the doors are also going to be open to allow homebrew applications to be whitelisted, so that homebrew applications and developers in the scene can start utilizing Xbox Live features in their homebrew, which of course means that like games that are being ported over and new ideas can then share the same platform that all of these other really cool games and apps do on the platform. And love it or hate it, it's all there in the XDK. So if anyone's interested in that, my suggestion would be to start sort of tinkering with that and learning the features and reading up the kind of stuff that's in the XDK as far as Xbox Live functionality, because the alternative project will be looking for testers to push the boundaries on what can and can't be done with the features that the XDK allows you to use with your homebrew.
Well, since you mentioned XDK and I guess the fact that we do have some of the OG devs here from back in the day, perhaps Rowdy or someone can just give us a quick rundown, because some people do consider the XDK as being a bit of like a taboo software, or the big no-no. But from my perspective, and this is just my opinion, right, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion, this piece of software was provided, or as some people might claim, leaked to scene developers as early as the early 2000s, right? And with this piece of software, it's what I feel like built the Xbox scene. And when I say scene, not as in the Discord, but the community in general, because it was used to write software that a lot of people use today, for example, XBMC, or the emulators that are out there, and the endless amount of apps and the dashboards and everything else. And that's not saying that there's a right or wrong, because we are fortunate now to have alternative solutions out there, such as the NXDK, which might be, it is a more, I guess, kosher or legal way to write this software. But at the end of the day, I feel like it comes down to whoever or whatever you're comfortable using. So if you do have that experience and DirectX 8 and stuff like that, you might feel more comfortable using the XDK. There's no right or wrong here. At the end of the day, if someone else can benefit from your project, then do it. Don't feel like you're limited because I have to use either X or Y.
Yeah, it's a really good point there, Hag, and I stand true to that opinion as well. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it's old. Yes, it's no longer supported, and clearly, there isn't really an official stance on it anymore. But it's good to see alternative ways to develop on the console come forth to the world, and to see that there's a passion to build different ways to allow different people to come into the scene and do things, irrespective of morals, but more so just how people choose to approach things. Some people might not be comfortable with old school C++ and whatever, and maybe some of the newer methods that are out there are more their style. But ultimately, we all reach the end goal of developing really cool stuff for a console that's like 20 plus years old, and ultimately coming together as a community to enjoy like rocking the Xbox, because that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
And back in the day, I mean, that wasn't widely available. There was, in the original scene, not everybody had access to it. I mean, hell, we didn't even see it until like 2006. We're like, where the hell was this at the whole time? But when you go from the original Xbox scene to the 360, the XDKs were all over the place. They didn't have like what you guys have created now.
Yeah, the NXDK.
The Open XDK, right? But in the original Xbox scene, not everybody had access to it.
No.
And
right.
You kind of doing what you guys are doing. You got to use what you got. biggest thing is from the XDKs, there's a lot of examples. So maybe you guys were just talking about writing live stuff or writing achievements. Because I remember the 360 when Atlantis isn't on there, is he? Or MBG or whatever the hell he's called now.
No, he's not.
Okay, so when we did the Super Nintendo emulator for the 360, so Lantis and I were sitting here talking one night, and we're just talking, we're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had an emulator that had achievements? It was a great idea until we did it, because everything does show up. Microsoft can see everything that we did anyway, right? And so we're like,
Right.
oh, crap. Now they're seeing our achievements are showing up under our profiles, right? But but those are things that we just thought it was cool to do it. It's like, hey, let's do an achievement. And then we were trying to like, well, hey, if they unlock that achievement, how can we give them an avatar thing? And, we're like, maybe we better stop at the achievements. It just depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you guys are making your own live stuff, you can do stuff like that. You can use those examples, because the original Xbox Live wasn't great. I mean,
that's true.
From doing it from it was a beta, but they got a lot of ideas from what we did in the scene from different things, where they came from, and it even wasn't even XBMC back then. It was Xbox Media Player was what it originally started out with.
Which then became Plex, by the way. I found this out like yesterday. Did not know that Plex, like its origins were in XBMC, which I thought that was so cool, because Plex is so ubiquitous and popular and well known. And of course, Cody is, infamous. So anyways, just wanted to mention that. Like, I didn't know that, and I wanted to share that Plex has its origins in XBMC or Xbox Media Player.
They were a fork of XBMC. They also used the XBR tool. They updated that, because I used that for a while.
Well, back then, we all used to share, hey, here's how you do this, and here's FTP. Here's how you do, with Quicks, was the boost mode, right?
Yep.
And, we gave that code to everybody that wanted to use it, because that just made Quicks work with everything, right?
Yeah.
Unleash X.
Even Unleash X, even though he probably wasn't too thrilled. He was not the most fun person to work with, but we did give it to him. I mean, because it had auto discovery. Your Xbox would auto discover each other. So if you had the FTP client, it would work with, if I have an XBMC box or I have an Avalanche box, they still auto discover each other, and you could use that to FTP between those two Xboxes.
Right. You shared techniques with each other for the benefit of the whole, right?
Yeah.
And just to bring up the whole thing about sharing is, it's not just with software, right? You can see it with hardware as well. There's various solutions out there. Nemesis, Xenium alternative. That's amazing piece of hardware. The way he's designed it as well to be able to do quick programming, and it's just literally it's a simple just plug in into a little slot and then press a click of a button and it just programs a Xenium for you. It's just how everything evolved, and it all comes down to just sharing that information, and that's what I feel has kept this scene alive compared to the other scenes out there, which have sort of quietened down or sort of started to die.
Right.
So it's just the options out there of, as I said, if Nemesis with his Xenium, obviously Ryzee, you got Keck with his HDMI adapters and Electron Shepherd as well. So it's thriving, and it's a great time to be part of the scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what you guys are working on now is bringing the scene back to what it was built on originally. Was everybody worked together? no one was out to be, I'm the best, right? We did projects because this is what we liked. It wasn't,
Yeah.
I'm
Imagine
trying to be
if
better than you.
Imagine if XBMC was closed source this whole time. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing as well is people don't understand that a lot of people that did contribute to the scene back in the day were either Microsoft employees themselves or ended up working for Microsoft later down the line.
Right.
So you had teams like Complex would share information, Executor will share information amongst each other, Evolution X will share information, amongst each other. And people would be like, "Well, they're competitors, right? You got Executor competing." No, it wasn't like that back in the day. It was, yes, they might come across as, okay, here's my solution, here's their solution, but at the end of the day, they all did collaborate together. Whether it wasn't back in the scene and wasn't, seen by the public, it did. That sharing of information did occur. And unfortunately, I feel sometimes that now it's more important to start sharing. Yes, stuff does get kept, okay, and it's not just, it's from both sides of the scene. But it's that gatekeeping that will ultimately kill the scene off.
Learn from our mistakes in the past.
Yep.
By not having this available, that's why we lost so much information, and we're trying to bring it back. Is because, one person had it, you know what I mean? Or, maybe two people had it.
And I'll be more than happy in the next episode, we can discuss a bit further on the whole history of how the teams were formed and all the software that's come out, because we are talking about 24 years of history.
Yeah, and like they said, we're old. You better do it before we all go senile and we can't remember shit.
Yeah, we'll try to archive that piece of content before your Xbox Live, quote unquote, goes offline. But yeah, we are at like an hour and a half now, so I understand. By the way, is Rocky still around? Is he still in here?
I'm still here.
Oh God, isn't it like 4 a.m. for you? You're a trooper. Thank you so much for sticking around, bud.
5 a.m.
Yeah, 5 a.m.
Oh,
here.
geez. Well, I think we should find a stopping point in the near future for this, so that we can all get back to our loved ones. So I'm going to kind of conclude this here in a moment, but before I do that, I just want to thank everybody for hopping on. This went a little bit longer, but this is basically an Avengers team of who's who in the Xbox community. And as someone who, as a teenager, me getting into the Xbox and getting pulled into it, it was enticing to learn how it worked. And a lot of the names I'm seeing in here are people who, I used your projects and benefited from that. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time to hop on this call. And I hope we have many episodes in the future. This is episode 1 of hopefully many to come. And I would like to talk more, like Haguero was saying, I would like to talk more about the history of the scene, because there's a lot of stories there that I feel haven't been talked about. And, it might just get lost to time, we're all getting older, right? But before we kind of wrap up here, are there any, just, and not to go into a deep dive, but are there any projects that anyone in here is working on that you want to kind of give attention to? I got a couple on my list, so when we go to conclude, I'll list them off. But if anyone wants to talk about any projects that you're working on, feel free to take the floor real quick.
Well, I was trying to say earlier, XCAT's on the downloader on MU Station or Gamers, so you can grab it for there.
Thank you, Rocky. You're great.
Hell yeah.
So, and also, I want to chime in on XDK stuff quickly. Whilst having the open source ones great in this day and age, morally, it kind of goes out the window when you're hacking a console to bypass all its protection. So, in my opinion, also all the homebrew is coded for the XDK. So you would need to port it to the newer one, which might be an absolute headache, which nobody wants to do. So all the new stuff like the Celeste homebrew and the Sonic ones and stuff that are made on the OpenXDK, those are all fine. That's all great and dandy. But I don't have a moral issue with people using whatever the hell they want to use, because at the end of the day, we're kind of modding a console. We're, essentially breaching Microsoft's copyright infringement.
Yeah.
So, you can't turn around and say, well, you're an arse for using the XDK. We don't touch it when you're but you've modded the console. You're doing worse. So, use what you want. I mean, I use the XDK. I couldn't care less. If Microsoft send me a cease and desist, then okay, fine. But I'm not making thousands of pounds off this or millions of dollars or anything like that. So Microsoft will not touch me with a barge pole.
Yeah.
It's just certain people have some moral high ground where they don't use it for some reason, and to be perfectly honest, they've used it at some point in their life. So it just kind of invalidates complaining that other people use it when you use it.
And if I can add to that,
Hey,
Rocky,
Rocky, they don't come and they don't mail you a cease and desist. They send 2 guys to your house.
Oh,
a
bunny.
black van takes Rocky away.
That's a story for another podcast. But
yes, definitely would love to hear that.
If I can say, I feel like without the XDK kind of coming out through whatever means it did, we wouldn't be where we are now. Microsoft, for whatever reasons, they're a business. They have to move on to the next thing. They essentially abandoned the console, and it has been up to the community of modders to pick up that mantle and move it forward. And the community has done incredible things that, like I was saying, I would have been a dream a decade or two ago. Like the stuff that has come out in the past 6 months has been some of the best and most exciting things that have ever happened for the Xbox. And a lot of those things are still in their infancy. For example, Mod Show, for example, OXHD. To kind of self promote, I'm also working on a wireless adapter that integrates the original Xbox's Wi-Fi picker and stuff like that. Which I don't know why I'm putting myself through that hell of adding extra packets and headers and shit like that, but. The community has picked up this essentially an abandoned console and given it new life, and I think that's why we're all here, right? We want to see it do things that it could not have done by design. And yeah, there's a lot of good brains in this environment, and yeah, I wouldn't be where I am right now in my career if not for the original Xbox, and I say that without any shadow of a doubt. My interest in the Xbox is what led me into learning about soldering and circuitry. The first time I ever used an FTP server was in XBMC. The first time I ever wrote a Python script was for a plugin in XBMC, and now I use that in my daily life, right? So it is a garden, of potential, and it's like I said, it's only getting better from here. I don't mean to go on a soapbox, but I just want to express that I wouldn't be where I am if not for the original Xbox. And I don't say that willy-nilly. I say that with sincerity. And I'm curious to see what else comes out for it.
It's not like Microsoft didn't get something from the scene, because a lot of the stuff that came out on the 360 came from the original Xbox scene.
Oh yeah, it's
right,
without a shadow of a doubt that XBMC was definitely the reason why the 360 got so many multimedia features, especially with the Blades dashboard.
Yeah.
That's without a shadow of a doubt.
I can tell that story too.
But that's something we can definitely
Episode
discuss.
Episode 2.
Episode 2, yeah, because this is just scraping the beginning. There's so much, and for everyone that's, joined in and listening, thank you so much for your support, not just for the podcast, but in general for the server. You guys have made the server what it is today. So from myself and the admin team, we do want to say thank you to everyone.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
I just want to say first things first. Thanks for having me on the chats. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to theusualplaces.co.uk. There's already a Modcast image up there, as well as links to Team Resurgent, TDU World, Phoenix Network, the Console Mods Wiki, Mr. Mario, Famicom, Matt Casey, and Team UIX. If you do want a spot there for a credible project, please let me know. I will be more than happy to put it on the ever-growing list.
Well, with that, I'd like to kind of end out, and we can hang out and continue chatting. Whoever has time, and it's not 5 a.m. You have to wake up the next day to take care of your several children. Rocky, you guys are welcome to hang out.
Mine's are adults now.
Oh, good. Yeah, stay on 6 a.m., 7. What's the difference, right?
Exactly.
But
I went for a nap earlier.
But so I'd like to kind of finish out and conclude by just listing off a few projects that I hope that anyone who is new to the scene, maybe they don't know about this. And there's more I could talk about, but I'm trying to, episode 1, right? There's more we can talk about. So shout out to PrometheOS, which is like I said, the firmware or operating system that runs on a mod chip before the Xbox boots, lets you format drives, lets you connect over FTP. It's a very modern replacement of the old Xenium OS. And it's been tremendously useful. As a user, I've been ecstatic about it. Like I said, it's got Snake. What more can you want? Link it up to Xbox, link it up to Insignia. Cool. And of course to SirBIOS, which has been the go-to de facto BIOS to use on your mod chips, on your T-Stop flashed Xboxes. It's incredibly useful, and it's getting better every month, it seems. So it's great that there's a team that has picked up that and has added modern features to it. It's great. Like that by itself has revitalized so much of the scene, I feel like, just in all the features that it's been added and all the continued support. Again, if you have an old Xbox and you haven't run XCAT on it yet, please do so. There are still missing DLC content, all kinds of little knickknacks and that have yet to be archived, and it'd be good to preserve those for future generations to enjoy, right? On the note of XCAT, sort of a sister project or a similar project is Pinecone by Milenko. So that runs on a PC and lets you archive lost content by hooking the hard drive up to a PC. There's also, of course, Endgame. If anyone doesn't know, Endgame is the dashboard exploit that came out. It lets you plug in a flash drive. You can soft mod your console, and it's super easy to use. It's like magic. Like, I wish we had this back in the hot swapping days. I've killed hard drives hot swapping. So if you're a newcomer, consider yourself pampered because Endgame exists. PicoProm SD by DTomcat lets you recover your EEPROM off of a Xbox console, and it's a fantastically useful utility. It also has hard drive unlocking utilities as well, so it can unlock your hard drive if it's been orphaned and that sort of thing. So shout out to PicoProm SD, a very cool utility or device. OGX Mini has come out, and that's a new variant of OGX 360, which was a project originally made by Ryzee, who spoke a little bit earlier. Lets you connect modern gamepads like 8-bit adapters. Lets you use modern controllers over Bluetooth even, and 360 controllers, all kinds of new controllers on this old console. Shout out to the Steel Battalion parts that Harcroft is making and working on. It's replacement PCBs for the Steel Battalion control deck. That's a fantastic project that I'm sure we'll talk about more in the future. Thank you again to Ryzee for making Hawk, the Xbox communicator replacement. I know a lot of people in Insignia were asking for that, so it's very cool. In the Insignia community, we're asking for that, so it's very cool to see Ryzee put in the work to make that, and we all thoroughly thank him for that. I don't think I'm speaking by myself here, right? Other than that, if you guys do want to connect to the usual places, I don't know if we've mentioned that yet, but the usual places is a reference to XBins, which is a repository for everything related to the original Xbox console, from BIOSes, to dashboards, to homebrew, anything that they try to make it so that basically anything that exists that you'd want to download for your Xbox is available in that repository, and it's been around for decades, and it's been a great resource for the community to have. You can connect to that through Team Resurgence Pandora application, which is available on GitHub. You can load that on your computer and connect to their servers and browse their repository and download things. And I think that about covers all the projects that I wanted to talk about. Did I miss anything, guys? Anyone want to give a shout out to the projects going on? That's a given. That's the foundation of the cool stuff that's going on. Everyone knows about console mods. It's fine. It's fine.
I just want to say. Sorry. I just want to say thank you to Nemesis, because when I was doing Prometheus, he was essential in getting that done. He provided the hardware, his pluggable mod chip made
Program
the fact that I had to program it 1,000 times. I must have.
Yep.
It's definitely hardware is a lifesaver. So
Yeah.
and the fact that it was donated as well was just an amazing thing as well. So thanks Nem.
Yep. And as someone who's using many of his projects, including the Zerk recreation, the dual fan mod Caddy, his STM board, there's several of Nem's projects in my like dream build Xbox that have been, dreams of mine. So yeah, Nem is doing great work in the community as well.
Yeah, and we'll be looking at getting other creators on board as well. So if Nem or anyone else is interested, just to speak about your projects as well, just give us a heads up. More than happy to add you to the show.
And Nemesis is just a hell of a nice guy to begin with.
Agreed.
Yep.
Now that the show's ending up, I just want to let everyone know that if you do want to stay back and chat, we will be moving across to the general voice room, and everyone will have permissions to speak. So if you want to chat with any of us here, apart from Rocky, because he'll probably be sleeping, please join us in
Oh, no, I'll be here. I'll be here.
Well, thank you for everyone for joining. This has been episode 1 of the Usual Places Modcast. This will be published on YouTube as well as in other places, probably the usual places.
Yep.
But yeah, that's it for now. So we want to release these. I think the goal is about every month or so, if not twice a month. And we hope to have a lot more cool and interesting stories and news, Xbox related news to share with you guys.
Yeah,
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you,
Well,
Scotch.
thanks very much. The one thing I do just want to sort of ask about this, I probably speak for a lot of us based in the UK and Europe when I pose this question, but where
He's dropped out.
Yep. And that question will be saved for episode 2. What a good segue. Thank you for that. Tune in next week for the riveting answer question that he is going to ask. Only
And
here on the usual place.
And thanks for taking the lead, Scotch. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you all for humoring me.
Bye all.
And with that, we'll sign out. Thank you all so much.
Game over.
Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Take care.